I was adopted right at birth, always had the desire to find my birth mom. And I went to the hospital, I showed up and I was like, I think I'm here to there has to be some document. I'm born here. And so she just said to me oh, we don't have it. And so I just kind of left really defeated. And then that's actually when I started to pursue the journey of Hollywood. I ended up going to a Christian college, essentially almost before DNA or
Ancestry.com
and
all those
of that
things.
Came out.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what came back was this very specific information that was she had a son, he was older than you. Oh gosh, there's this person who didn't want anyone to know about me. I never felt like I needed a mother. Okay, this is not the story I had wrote in my head. 10 years of counseling, I can identify that today, the goal then was to say, I am worth it. But then I had to get real about that, where I was I go into rooms to make people laugh to prove that I deserve to be there. I got a letter probably a year later that she didn't want to be found. I remember I was 24, I remember where I was disappointed with God. It was coming out of the COVID era, and I get this email that's this DNA 23andMe ancestral whatever angel wants to help you and thinks they found your half-brother.
Welcome to the Broken to Build podcast, a refuge for authenticity. Each episode, you'll be reminded that our scars are the foundation of our strengths. You will feel seen, known, and loved as you find beauty in the brokenness while you build the extraordinary life you were created to live. Welcome back to our Broken to Build podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for another week. Welcome to the community. We are so excited that you're here, and I am so excited. I'm Lauryn DeLoach. I'm your host. I'm excited to welcome Ashley Murphy today. She has been a friend of mine for a long time, and I'm excited to delve into your story. I think a lot of people can learn and be encouraged from all the things that you've gone through. So thanks for being here.
Woohoo.
Woohoo. Why don't we start off by you telling everyone a little bit about yourself, just some snippets.
Oh, the 3 fun facts.
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay, let's see. 3 fun facts. Well, I'm a youth pastor, have been a youth pastor for a very long time. I'm the Betty White of student ministry at this point. That's how we met, was your husband being a youth pastor. So Betty White over here, married a man from Montana. There's people who live there, not just people who film Yellowstone. Shout out. And I have 3 kids. They all start with the letter M now. Maeve, Maverick, and Magnolia. The party's over. And my most interesting fact, not that any of that mattered, my kids, my husband, I was on the TV show The Office.
I did not know that. What was your character name?
I was, call me Pam. No, I'm just kidding. Because people are going to think I'm lying. If you watch the job fair episode in season 4. Okay. I know this is going to make me sound really absorbed with myself.
No, I'm really excited because I had no idea.
But, with teenagers, it makes you somewhat cool.
Yes.
When you're starting to wear orthopedic shoes. So I was in the job fair episode. I was a background actor. Okay. And Steve Carell starts talking. It's he's talking about all these different job fair booths. And he goes the military, that's cool. The morgue, blah, blah, blah. And then he's refreshment. And you see this girl and she's holding popcorn. And that is me.
How did you get that gig?
I lived in LA for a season and wanted to be an actress.
I could see you being an actress.
It was up there, and then I was oh, maybe it was the time when getting student loans was cool. Yeah, and I was I want to be a part of Sally Mae's crew. And if you're older like me, you would know what Sally Mae is. But I got lots of student loans to prove my worth. So I did background on Grey's Anatomy. I did background on this show called Secret Life of the Teenage whatever.
Oh, I remember that.
Teen.
Yeah.
And I was a student because I look young. Yeah. So I got a lot of these little background roles there. I was in high schools. The Office. I was on The Price is Right. I won a gumball
with
machine.
Bob Saget?
No.
Oh.
With Drew Carey.
That's his name. Yeah. Okay.
His 100th episode.
Okay.
Won a gumball machine. That was so sad. And
did you get up on stage?
On stage. Did the whole
Girl, you're a TV star. I didn't even know it. Do you feel like you missed your calling with being a pastor now?
No, I love it. I wish. But yeah. And so
Those are fun facts.
That's my little secret life.
Awesome. Okay. And the kids, all M's for a reason or just because it sounded good?
It sounded good. So the first one, Maeve, we just liked it because I was going to name her Brave. Okay. And then I thought one day she would hate me because she sounded like a Disney character. Okay. So we went with Maeve. Okay. Less money for therapy. Yep. So second, Maverick. His name was Luca all the way up till the due date 1 week before. And a girl from the youth group was like, if you have another kid, you should name him Maverick. I've never seen Top Gun. Yeah. And just named him that. Okay. And then it felt like when the third came, it'd be weird.
You had to stick with the M's. Yeah.
Maeve's name for her was going to be Lemon Daisy. And we ended up giving that as her middle name.
Did you really? Yeah. That's not a joke.
Kid. Yeah. Poor kid. I don't know. I had 3 C-sections. I was just like, whatever. Just name her whatever. Because she was a surprise. She was the only one. I waited to find out. Okay. And I wept. So
when she was a girl, or when you found out you were
when
pregnant?
She was a girl. Because my son is a feral raccoon who just around my house, and I was like, I don't think I can do 2 of them. And so they were like, it's a girl, and I was like, oh, the Lord loves me. So my kids never watch this. I love all of them. If it was a boy, it would have been fine.
It would have been fine. Totally.
I didn't have a name. I didn't have anything.
So Lemon Daisy it is.
So Lemon Daisy was her middle name. Okay. And we stuck with Magnolia.
Okay. Cute. Oh my gosh. So fun. Okay. So would love to jump into kind of your story now that people have gotten a chance to know you a little bit. So wherever you feel like starting with that.
Background. A day when I was born in Hollywood. No, I think when I shared with you a little bit of like what I tend to lean into sharing my story is I was adopted right at birth, closed adoption. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's like that is one of the major themes of my whole story.
Did you always know that you were adopted? Like they always told you?
Yeah, there was never this like shocking, like kind of like I wish there was like Hallmark moment, like I'm actually a princess. Yeah. And like, I know, I like knew it.
And I'm not.
I'm not. But I will tell you, I used that line many times when I had to do my chores. And I was like, I'm probably a princess somewhere. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Like really like to wound my mom for adopting me. I'm like,
stick it to her.
I'm like, I am Anne Hathaway, Princess Diaries. I was not. That movie ruined me. I definitely thought I was the Princess of Genovia. But so my brother is also adopted. So I have an oldest brother. He's 42. And then I had a brother under him, 41. He's adopted. And then there was me, adopted. All of us knew we were adopted. There was never like this family. I hate to say like there can be that, but there is. Like there was never any feeling of anybody was different from anyone else.
That's
and
good.
Other than like the sweet older brother, like they had to make fun of me so that I like, grew some character.
Yeah, my boys do that with my daughter. Yes. It's part of the rite of passage.
Right. Like they would tell me I came from like the grab bag at the dollar store. I mean, some of it was like a little wounded, but I'll send them my bill for counseling.
But it's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine from it. But it wasn't like we all look the same. And I think that was really beautiful because if you looked at us, you wouldn't have been able to tell that we were all adopted. Okay. And we all had different stories. Yeah. But like any curious kid, always had the desire to find my birth mom, always wanted to, searched for it. But growing up, my mom was really... I give this disclaimer. We're in the 90s at this point. And I can't believe I can say that now. Like, we're in the 90s.
Way back in the day. Way back in the 1900s.
When I didn't have a cell phone and I had to memorize my home number. Yeah. I remember thinking, like, counseling just wasn't a conversation. It was like, this is your hormones. This is like something wrong with inside of you. And not that it was meant to shame me. There just wasn't a lot of...
it was a different era.
In information. Yes. Like it wasn't welcome to be curious. You kind of just did what you were told. And I function like that. I'm a people pleaser. So when I turned 18, I don't know what I thought. I think I watched too many movies. I went to the hospital where I was born. Actually, I really have never told this part of my story. So I'll tell it here. Yeah. So I went to the hospital where I was born.
Hear it, people.
It's the first time. And I went to the hospital. I showed up and I was like, I think I'm here to like, there has to be some document. Like, I'm born here.
Yeah.
Where's my document?
Okay.
And I don't know if like the nurse just didn't know what to say, but I was such like a lot of insecurity was inside of me. I hated the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And so she just said to me like, oh, we don't have it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that was.
Do you think that was the truth?
I don't know. Like that boggles my brain that you can just like
lose documentation of my birth
right.
from 18 years ago. Right. I'm just gone. I disappeared.
Right. I'm like, this is like something that people like.
There's your Hallmark story.
Thank you. I definitely have a twin sister.
Yeah.
I don't. You'll actually hear.
Who might be a princess.
Who's probably a princess. I don't. I actually I talked to my brother. I'll save you that story. I have another brother. So nothing. And so I just kind of left really defeated. And then that's actually when I started to pursue the journey of Hollywood. I ended up going to a Christian college. And throughout that, there was something that you could reach out to that like said, essentially almost like before DNA or
Ancestry.com and all those
of that
things.
Came out,
Yeah.
You could write to these like departments and they could send you back what was given.
Okay.
And so what came back was like this very specific information that was like, she had a son, he was older than you. She had you and she didn't tell anyone. And that was, like that part of me was so overwhelmed at this thought of like, there's this woman who didn't, it felt like a lot of shame. Like if I could identify the word today, I'm like, oh gosh, there's this person who like didn't want anyone to know about me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not the story I had wrote in my head.
Well, I do want to touch on that. What was your goal or hopes or dreams when you started that search? Was there like an ideal outcome? Was it?
Oh yeah, we were gonna sit and have tea together and be best friends,
reunited, and yeah.
And I didn't need a mother. Like I never felt like I needed a mother. But actually, at 36 and 10 years of counseling, so go to counseling because it is life-changing.
Amen.
10 years of counseling, I can identify that today, the goal then was to say, I am worth it.
Yes.
I was worth it.
Yeah.
I am worthy.
Yeah.
And even though you didn't think, in my head, it was like very personal.
Yeah.
You didn't think I was worthy, so you got rid of me. That was the story, the narrative.
To show you messed up, that you missed it.
Better. Yeah. And all throughout that, I think that was where like that storyline can really develop what you become, because then in the Hollywood world, you pursue acting. So like somebody knows how good I am, or in the Christian world, which I've worked in a church, like you try to become this really great pastor and speaker, and you don't realize how much of your identity is attached to things you're doing to prove your worth.
To find worth. Yeah.
In the very beginning. So
my story is a little bit, I feel that on so many levels, because that was I didn't have the same story, but that same struggle. Like I'm not worth it.
Yes.
So it's crazy how deep and how common that feeling is when we really get down to the brass tack of how someone operates. A lot of it is out of unworthiness.
Oh, and in your decisions and the way you react to people and the way you need to prove things. It's like, I'm starting to understand when scripture says this like the turmoil inside of us, a lot of times that's because the truth is I'm not believing in who Christ said I am.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think for me, I do love to make people laugh. I still love to make people laugh. Like I'm like, one day I'm going to be like a stand-up comedian or something when I'm like 70.
Totally should be. I support that dream.
Yeah.
The real Betty White.
I will be the real Betty White one day. But then I had to like get real about that, where I was like, I go into rooms to make people laugh, to prove that I deserve to be there.
Yeah. And to make people feel good and they like me and they...
It's like so much was attached to all these things. And I think it's like as you grow and you evolve and develop, you're like, oh, all these people like I was so mad at for so long, through so many different careers, through so many different relationships. It was an ownership on my part of, I was looking for you to tell me of this wound way back when.
Yeah.
Because there's so many parts that I would tell people, like, I think I heard this a couple weeks ago, we have a lot of women in our church who have adopted. And it's really hard to understand, like, you're adopted. Like, they're almost like sometimes it's
you were
like,
chosen.
Yeah, you're chosen.
Yeah.
And my grandmother used to say, like, we wanted you. Mm-hmm. But there is a scientific thing that happens that you are detached from what you were created to be with. And that's like, whew, like when a kid is ripped apart from their parent.
Yeah.
In all of our systems, if it's foster care, wherever it is, and we're like, why is that kid acting the way they are? Look at their life.
Yep.
There is parts of them that they physically, scientifically cannot process because they are ripped apart from the intention of the relationship.
Yeah.
And and it's welcome to sin. Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
It's just life that happens. And God can redeem those things and God can heal those things. But it still happens.
I just got this picture. Years ago, I was talking to a couple that adopted, and their adopted son or daughter, I can't remember what it was, but the child was like 5 and having real attachment issues. Yes. And so they ended up being advised they had to essentially start over with this baby from it was 5 years old, but from the beginning of they were like, you need to essentially wear the baby. You need to carry this child all the time because it missed that attachment. It missed the baby stage. It missed all of these things. So it needs these things to grow into to own its identity.
Yes.
And all of those things. I keep saying it's because I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl, but I got a really interesting spiritual picture of sometimes the Lord has to bring us back to the beginning in order for us to be stripped down and then for us to walk in our full identity and grow in the full identity that he has for us. And that's essentially what you're going through at this point of your life.
And I don't even realize, but you think about that verse where it says that God adopts us as sons and daughters. And if we really think about all of this scientific part of it, of being detached, we were detached from God because of sin.
Right.
And then he has to bring us back into relationship and salvation. Yeah. Nothing that we can do. Yeah. And we have to also reattach. We have to re-heal. We have to re-know that we're their child. And it's wild how God is so kind in that way that in every, it's really he truly hits every single person's circumstance to go I see you, I love you, and I desire healing for you. Yeah. So, and I went so the end of, fast forwarding a little bit, the end of the story, I got a letter probably a year later that was essentially she didn't want to be found. And I was like,
did she know you were looking for her?
You could fill out this government letter at the beginning, essentially, when you first do it. And it was if your child ever seeks to find you, what would you do? Okay. And so I got it. And that to me was, I remember I was 24. I remember where I was. It was downtown West Palm Beach. And I just sat by the seawall at the water. And I was honestly, I was disappointed with God. Yeah. That was a true disappointment. Yeah. I don't feel probably because the performance in me, all of my life, God, I've tried to hit these marks. I went to church. I went to youth group. I did this. I pursued you. I lived the life you told me. And all I ever wanted was to meet this person. Yeah. It's because it was innately made in me. And it's just not going to happen. And it was it was devastating. It was I remember thinking that was faith shattering for me. Yeah. And I'm not saying that my way of thinking about my relationship with God was right at that point, because I had grown up very in the Baptist realm, and you check the boxes and moved over to more non-denominational, so you're I'm ebbs and flows through all these denominations. I still don't get half of them. I just know I want to be able to dance and have a good time. So
have a drink once in a while.
Have a little communion. Yep. Real communion. Stuff that
not this grape juice.
No, crap. This stuff we talk about in the Bible. No. I don't want that extra syrup. Yeah. I didn't even know. But you fast forward, my 30th birthday comes around, and Jesse, my husband, gets me the DNA test, like the ancestry, whatever. And I was like, well, this is a disappointment for a present. I'm not spitting in a tube. And I was like, you had to be like,
yeah.
It's gross. That noise was probably gross. Sorry. So there I go.
I want to make a super inappropriate comment right now, but I won't.
Well, it's just,
this is a Christian podcast, people.
We're building. We're building. I'm not going to be invited back.
This is a one and done episode, guys. Taking all of Ashley because you will not see her again.
Series finale. There is no rebuilding this. Yeah, so I did it, and nothing happened for 3 years. And
really?
3 years. The only thing I found out is that I was like German, and I just was so offended by that.
And you're like, that's helpful. Thank you.
I was like mad because look at me. I'm like, I don't have to shave my mustache every week and get laser hair treatment. I'm Greek. I know I'm Greek. Call me Mamma Mia. So I still don't believe it. I think it's all a hoax. They're going bankrupt, so they didn't know. I'm Greek. I am Greek.
They just wanted to collect your DNA. If we want to talk about conspiracy theory stuff, there's a clone of you somewhere.
That's what scares me. I'm out there twice.
You are.
So here we go. But guess what? She's probably Greece. And they probably told her she was Greek. And that's not fair. So anyways, all the people who have German heritage, Danke schön, I'm sorry. I just had an expectation for myself. So moving on, I was very disappointed. And nothing got connected. And no joke, New Year's Eve of 2020. Are we in 2024 now?
Or 2024, yeah.
Oh, it might have been 2021. It was coming out of the COVID era.
Okay.
We went to Montana, where my husband's from, and I get this email that's like, this DNA 23andMe ancestral whatever angel wants to help you and thinks they found your half brother. And I was like, no, I will not resubscribe. You're not getting $39.99 a month to tell me I'm German again.
You're not getting my DNA a second time. I was like, fool me once, shame on me.
If you told me I was Greek, that would have been different. Yeah. I would have joined. Yeah. But even if you said I was like 0.5%.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is so weird. And I actually wrote them and was like, I am not pre-subscribing to this. And this is a hoax. And it's not, like, don't mess with people.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
essentially what I wrote.
That's what I would have thought.
And I get this email back and it's like, no, here is your half brother. So now remember, 6 years prior, no, this is now almost 10 years prior, I've gotten this letter that says you have a half brother out there.
So you knew about him.
I knew about him, but he was older and da-da-da. So this person sends me this guy's information, and it's him.
I really want to know how they figured that out, which is kind of crazy.
They have my DNA.
I know, but it's kind of crazy.
Or they cloned him.
It's not really him.
It's not really him.
Cyborg. It's
honestly.
Fine. Next episode, guys.
It gets wild.
Yeah.
Well, no, because this is what's crazy. They sent it to me. It's the same area that I would be from. Like, it was crazy. This guy and my mom, like my birth mother, and there's no attachment to dad. Like, dad has never been
in the picture at all.
Yeah, like, I'll give you my theories of what I actually think has happened. Okay. But I probably think that there was some, like, either rape or something that happened that was pretty traumatic for her.
Okay.
Because of how this story is all gonna, like, end, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But he reaches out to me, or I reach out to him, and I'm like, hey, I think I'm your sister, half sister, and blah, 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 blah. And he writes back, he's like, no, I don't have any siblings.
Stop.
Yeah, and I said, well, I'm going to give you this. And he's like, what would make you think that or something? This is like all through Facebook or something.
Wait, why did so he had never done the DNA? And
never done. He wouldn't even think that he needed to because he was never told I existed.
Wow, okay.
So fast forward, I give him the specific information from that paper.
Yep.
And he's like, how do you know this? And they said, because your mother, Teresa, is my mother. And here's my information and here's my story. And I found you.
Wow.
Now, the setup to this, and just to kind of like give a little perspective, 6 months, maybe 8 months prior to that, I had like kind of had visited it one time before, but dug into the mental world of borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
And that is very triggered by abandonment and rejection.
Okay.
And so when you actually meet kids of foster or adoption or have been abandoned by a parent, a lot of times those people possess this, and it is reactory.
And what is that? What is it? Like,
so it really comes out. It's not like bipolar, you know, where it's like a hormonal thing that you can like take medicine for.
Right.
You have to literally train your body that when you are feeling the moment of rejection or abandonment, to not run, to not leave, to not attack.
okay.
So for years, like my husband and I would get in these fights, and I'd be like, well, I just don't want to be married anymore. I just want a divorce. And I'm working in the church, so I'm not telling people all this is going on.
Right.
So I'm not getting help. But I thought it was normal. I thought everybody
Right.
told their husband when they sucked that they were leaving.
That they were leaving. I did one time tell Aaron that I was like, I'm going to move to Section 8 housing. And I was like, if you want to stay in ministry, I am not cut out to be a pastor's wife. I was like, I don't have money on my own, so I'm going to move to government housing, and you can marry someone better suited for this job.
This is the thing about borderline. We don't even get that far. We're just like, I'm going. And you just like lose. You turn into the Hulk. That is the best way. And to anyone who has borderline or has identified with it, you will either say, I can see some of that, or it maybe you don't know and you're curious about that. I would encourage you, because it was so isolating. It was intense feelings, which is why my mom always went back. I mean, this is a women's podcast, or women will probably listen to this, and men, hopefully. But it's why I always went back. My mom would be like, it's your period. But really what was going on inside of me was, I'm not safe and I need to get out of here.
Right. Yep.
And that's from the detachment. And so 6 months prior to him, and this is how God works, because he breaks you to rebuild you.
Yeah.
So that you are ready to withstand. I just hit this, I'm sorry. So you are ready to withstand anything.
Yeah.
And I started to dive into this, and I read a book. I had read 2 books. There's one book that's called like, I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. That's the best way to describe it. Okay. Like, I hate you, but don't go anywhere because I don't want to be abandoned.
Yep.
And that book was hard for me because it didn't have this like hope message. But then there was a second book that was just very scientific about borderline personality.
Okay.
And it was one of those like tests, like if you hit 10 of these boxes, I was like, I hit 9.5. And I was like, I have it. But I was aware of it.
Right.
So like now you can start living.
Right.
And at the
and
end
identifying
of the book,
and using it as a place to grow, not an excuse to continue the behavior. It's like, hey, I know this is my tendency, so then I have to push in when I feel like I want to run or I want to leave.
I love what you just said, and I feel like I can speak into this as a person who has been processing and gotten to lots of counseling. Yeah. Mental illness is not an excuse.
Right.
It is actually a testimony. It is actually a platform to love people. And it is actually a place of humility. Yeah. And not like being humiliated, but humility, because you have to live your life in total reliance on like, my hope and healing does come from Christ. Mm-hmm. But also I needed to go to some real counseling. Yes. Because there were some really unhealthy habits. So like now if I get upset, I do like a little breathing box in the car, because there's lots of ways that I can just feel all of a sudden like the Hulk come. I joke and I call it the Hulk. I'm like, the Hulk wants to come over you.
I like that. Yeah.
And be like, bye. Yeah. I need to go get to safety. Yep. And I will finish the story about the brother, but to the extreme of having kids, that a couple weeks ago in counseling, my counselor was like, you have a really hard time that your like kids want to be with you. And I had to admit, and this is really hard and really sad, but I had to admit that I was like, a little part of me doesn't like want them to sleep with me. And I know everyone has their opinion on co-sleeping, whatever. I just don't want people to sleep with me because I don't like their body heat. Totally. I'm like, everybody stay in your own area. Yeah. Pillows between me.
Including my husband.
Oh,
like,
same.
Please, can
like,
you go to the other side?
This is my side. But with my kids, he was like, what is this deep down inside? And I said, I think it's 2 things. My dad passed away 2 years ago, and he has a lot of the same story and actually had borderline himself from his crazy story. And I said, I never want my kids to feel the loss that I have from losing my dad. And it was death is the ultimate abandonment. Right. Right. And it was so devastating. And I just didn't know how to like get through it. And I didn't realize like I had started to put up guardrails from even my own kids. Yeah. And then,
can you speak a little bit about the dad's process? Because death is the ultimate abandonment, and it is hard no matter how it happens. But in your case, it was
crazy.
A choice.
Yeah. So what you're sharing is that my dad actually, again, not talked about ever. I'm like, oh, I love to be unique. If you believe in the Enneagram, I'm a high 4. Like, I'm like, look at me. Like, even my dad's death is unique. What's wrong with me? I'm like, I definitely need a stand-up comedy show. But taking it down real quick, he did euthanasia. He had a severe Parkinson's. He had been living with it for 10 years. And there's a lot of like levels to that story. He himself was an orphan in England. He's like the true Oliver Twist. Orphan, got adopted. Mom didn't really want him, but wanted his sister. Got abused. Dad ends up dropping dead. Mom now blames him for dad's death. Gets beat, physically abused, sent away to boarding school, and essentially lived his whole life feeling like he was never enough. You know, and not until you're an adult do you start to have empathy for your parents' brokenness. Because you're like, no, you're the parent. Have it all together. And that's probably why I'm doing the work I'm trying to do, because I can't expect Maeve at 5 to have the empathy I need her to have for me at 36. Right. So I just got to do the work. Right. Because I don't want her to pay for that like I had to with my parents. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I joke that we save for our kids' counseling, not our kids' college. Yes. Like, you guys are going to need a whole bunch of therapy. But I'm like, but the good news is there's only good parenting. There's not perfect parenting. So that's why I tell myself every day. So when he died, it was like a call on the phone. And he was like, okay, I'm going to say goodbye now. And we read Psalms 23, and then we hung up. And I will say, you know, I thought that day about finding my birth mother was the darkest day of my faith. That probably was the quietest, darkest day, because death really has a sting you can't explain. Yeah. And I was like, God, are you real? Like, this is finality. Yeah. I've had like a great grandmother who I love, but you know, your brain's not processing the finality at this point. Yeah. And as much as there was stress of having an elderly parent who was sick and all of that, when they're gone, you're like, whew. Right. So that's when I really dived into like serious help, because the happiness of this story is the next day I went to church, and take me to church. And my dad's favorite song was like a hymn. And all of a sudden they read the verse that said about how no man can like separate us from our salvation with Christ. Essentially, I'm trying to think of what the verse is in the moment. And then they sang that hymn. And this peace, like the silence went to peace. Wow. And in that moment I was like, he is with the Lord. And it didn't heal everything, because then I had to start going on the journey of like, when I am abandoned and when death is ahead of me, how am I going to deal with this? I can't deal with it with the anger, because I was angry for a little bit. Yeah. For like a good couple months. I feel like I was very detached from my son, who I just had. I was like, I just don't know how to function as a human. Yeah. And jumping into counseling, I think a lot of it was going, your worth is there. Yeah. Nobody takes it when they leave. You're still worthy. You're still loved, and you're going to be okay. And also just realizing like, man, this is a part of life. And I think with my kids, fast forwarding to my kids a couple weeks ago, this conversation, I was like, I don't want to look back and regret this. Yeah. Because then what started going through my head was also, what if one day they choose to reject me? And I'm like, I don't want to be like doomsday. It's almost like a doomsday prepping. Like I have a whole like secret cabinet of like ravioli ready in case the world falls apart, the apocalypse. I'm a little bit of a prepper. Oh, I have it in my soul. I'm like, you're prepping in your soul. You come to me for like I need my can rations. I need my can of Chef for the beans and rice. Because I was like, oh my gosh, it's in my soul. Like, who can I protect myself from? Yeah. So do you think you are protecting yourself when coming back to the kids and counseling? Do you think you're protecting yourself, or is there part of it that's protecting
your kids
Yes.
from ever experiencing abandonment or rejection because of what you've gone through.
Yeah. You nailed it. That's the second one. I was just on a girls' weekend with some friends, and they said, one girl said her deepest fear was her kids living without her. And they said, sometimes this is the dark side of borderline. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the greatest relief is to think that I wouldn't be there in case I could harm them by who I am. Like, there's relief in almost not being there. Like, it feels like their world would be better. And I have to fight some of those thoughts.
Wow. Yeah.
Because again, it's like, what if? What if I mess them up? What if I don't do good enough? What if one day they reject? Like, I have to sow, James 3 talks about sow seeds of peace. And I have to sow that in to harvest it.
Yeah.
And I have to work really hard.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't want you to ever feel this.
Yeah.
And also the turmoil that I have sometimes, especially with my daughter who's 5, because she's really like the other day I posted that she told me her little brother was flicking her off with his middle toe. And I'm like, that doesn't work like that. But she's like, my husband, so she argues me. And she's like, yeah, he is, Mom. Well, he has a winky toe that's like this. It's like a little dinosaur claw. And I'm like, okay. So she's that personality.
Yeah.
But I'm having to learn to go you do have to be rejected, and you do have to have moments of this because you are going to be okay.
Yeah.
I can't project all my pain onto you.
Right. And the reality is we are all going to mess up our kids in our own specific way. But I also come back to the truth that the Lord put these children with us for a reason, even though he knew that we would mess them up in our own specific way and that they would go to counseling one day and be like, hey, my mom did this, my dad did this. But there's still purpose in that because even the ways that we fall short is preparing them and building them into the person that they need to become, even the struggle part.
Right. Yeah, I just have to remind myself that when they get on the counseling couch one day, they're just going to talk about how I cared about their inner feelings. And so forget you if that's not enough, No, I had to make you laugh for a second. But I do have to go back to the end of the story.
Yes.
Because I didn't get to tell you.
Yeah.
So I met the brother over Zoom or the phone. And it was, knowing me, I'm very awkward. I don't want to be. I just I embody awkwardness. And it is only as awkward as you make it. And 100% of the time I make it as awkward as possible. So I was like, hi, I'm your sister. And I was like, can I have $500? And he's just quiet. Because I was trying to be funny, it's a scam. Oh my gosh. And he was like, and I was like, I'm just kidding. I'm like, but seriously, you've missed 33 birthdays. So my birthday's January 26th. It's coming up. Yeah, you're like, what do you say to someone?
Was he starting to laugh or no? He was just
kind of.
I just don't know what to do with this.
Awkward. But in that conversation, what he had said to me was, through a few texts back and forth, essentially, I have 2 older brothers and they are wonderful. So I didn't really feel like I needed another brother. And actually,
no offense, but
no offense. And honestly, right now, I don't reach out to him right now because it was so much emotional, trying to figure it out with my dad's death and more kids. But it was because my birth mother was like, yes, this is true, but I want nothing to do with it. Do not tell her anything about me. Do not show her a picture. I mean, I didn't even really need to talk to this woman, but it was
he has a relationship with her.
He has a relationship with her, but is not allowed to share anything. And that put us in a really weird place because the thing that connected us, we can't talk about.
Is her, right.
And my biggest fear is rejection, to say the wrong thing. I don't want to feel rejected.
Right.
Their whole life, they lived in Vero Beach, which is 45 minutes from here. Your whole life.
Wow.
The person who birthed you, the person you dream about. And for me, that was pretty devastating. I've learned though that to hold on to the pain and be okay with it, because in some of this pain there, in all of it, God has redeemed.
Yes.
And kind of the thought that I did come to a healing place with her is, there's one part of me that's at the end of the life, I hope she comes to, and here's my Hobby Lobby pitch. I hope she comes to know Jesus.
Yeah.
I hope that because I can't imagine not wanting to know my kids.
Right.
Like if they were gone, I would want to know who they look like. What is it like? So that's where I've like kind of put together where there's like no dad information. There's something traumatic happened where like not me per se, but that story.
The idea of you, it hits her trigger point.
So bad.
Yeah.
And the two things that taught me was, though it hurt me, it had nothing to do with me.
Right.
And that's freeing. And I've had to like take that through so many things in life, but though it hurt me, it had nothing to do with me.
I feel like that is like a mantra that we all need to like really, really get into the depths of our soul when we realize that other people's reaction to us actually has nothing to do with us.
Oh, and it's how so
they
hard.
Process things, the traumas that they've been through, the life that they live, the journey that they've been on. It actually has nothing. If you don't like me, it doesn't really have anything to do with me. It's how you perceive me, because you perceive me different than someone else who really likes me.
Yeah.
And if we will be so much less offendable if we can really grasp that.
Oh man. And I'm still learning it. I like relearned it this year, and now I've applied it to that. And I'm like, okay, this is true. Like I don't take personal when I talk about her. I don't cry about it. Like there's no hurt there. What I'd like to know what she'd look like, so I have like a little view into my future.
Is she Greek?
Yeah. Is she Greek? Do I need Botox? Like what's ahead? I just need to know.
Did you age well? Do you have wrinkles?
What do I look like? Am I fun? That's number one. But the second thing, and this is where I'll end, and this is like for all of us, was, for me, it doesn't change my identity if I ever meet her.
Right.
Like she didn't create my identity, Christ did. And that's freeing finally to go oh man, like my worthiness will not be anymore. Like, and I can move on from like trying to become, I got my whole life, I like kind of wanted to be like some people might know who this is, like Christine Kane, like I wanted to be like this like great Christian and powerful speaker. And then you like kind of retract and you're like, that's like, why? And not that she's doing wonderful things. Right. And it's amazing. But it was almost like...
It's the heart behind it.
Yeah, like, would she see me and know I'm worthy? Mm-hmm. And all of that dissipated away. And I start to, like, re-find who God has created me to be. And the mom I get to be, and the wife I get to be, and the friend I get to be, and the pastor I get to be. Without all that pressure of trying to one day show her, like, look at me. And I realized, like, my worth didn't dissipate. But the second thing... is that I hope and pray, and I need to pray more for this fervently, is that she will come to find Jesus.
Yeah.
Because to go through life without hope, and it's like what you're doing here, like broken to build, is like, man, I think that's what breaks my heart now at this point. It's not that she'll never meet me.
Right.
Is it like, will she know Jesus? Because I believe that God is good. And one day, like, if she comes to know Jesus and I come, like, I think we'll have our Princess Diary moment.
Yeah.
Yes,
in heaven. Yep.
I think we serve a God who cares about that. And maybe it won't matter in heaven. I don't know. I don't got all the details. I don't know. But I do think that we have a God who cares so much. And I'm like, her greatest win and my greatest win isn't meeting each other. It's that I have found hope.
Yeah.
And God took me through this whole story, and I have hope. And honestly, talking to the brother, he doesn't have that either. And I remember him saying a profound thing, and I'll put a period here. He was like, it sounded like your life was much better than what it would have been. And that can be freeing. Like, that is like the freeing moment where you're like, okay, that was God.
So all the questions you had, maybe that was all God's protection from what your life could have been.
Yes. And you can finally go, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. And now I want to share my story. And now I want people to know, like, if you foster, if you adopt, like, take time to learn about borderline, because kids are fighting this. I'm watching it in some of these kids that I'm around. I have a great mom at my church who is, her and I have these discussions. She gets to see like the older version of me, but in her 7-year-old daughter who's fighting through this, be curious, like know your story, like get help when you need it. Like there's no shame.
Yes.
But you are worthy. And not because anybody deemed it, but because Christ did. Well, actually, someone did redeemed it.
Right.
Yes, I nailed it.
Done. That's a wrap.
Is that a youth pastor thing? I'm like, that's not even cool anymore.
No, I'm like, you are cool. I'm not cool enough to be a youth pastor. Be like, guys, remember the razor phones that we used to have?
Oh, hey.
No?
I remember we played Snake? No.
Yeah,
You and I.
no.
Do you know what someone told me? Sorry, this is to end with a laughter moment. And
Go
then
ahead.
you can nail it all home to my redeemed moment. Is that this boy in my youth group was like, please do not wear skinny jeans. And I was like, bro, when you have 3 C-sections, you have to wear skinny jeans to just like, it's literally like Spanx and jeans. I need them.
My legs are all I have left after 3 kids.
These barrel jeans aren't working for me. I don't know if I look like I have an Amish skirt on or I'm wearing jeans.
I'm trying with the wide leg, but I really just want to put on my leather leggings and call it a day.
No, they don't make hip-waisted C-section jeans.
Right.
Like that, nobody wants
Right.
that to hit there. I'm sorry. If you haven't had a C-section, we can talk about that when I'm not invited back.
That'll be episode 2 with you. Part 2.
Explicit. But I'm like, he's like, please do never wear skinny jeans again. And I was like, you know what? Just stop. I'm old.
Kicked out of the youth group.
Yeah, I'm like, I need gel inserts. Leave me alone. So anyways, okay, you can redeem that one.
So I have loved this because I feel like the Lord kind of weaves different pictures and themes in each episode. And I have very unexpectedly loved this theme of worthiness. And I feel like that's kind of woven in throughout your story. And I mentioned that I have kind of had that theme too. And I remember my breakthrough moment with worth, where it was something that I was working on with the Lord over and over again through counseling. It was like, oh, I didn't realize that I literally don't feel worth anything. And I was at a conference a couple years ago, and a woman named Jamie Kern-Lima was speaking. And do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm. So you're married, kids.
Married, kids. Yeah, this was like, I was still trying to just get to the bottom of like, I'm like, how are people confident in their skills? How are people like thriving? I don't understand. Like, I'm sitting here barely feeling like I'm worth a compliment. Like, let alone like, how do people have this self-confidence that they have? And like, I didn't get it. There was a disconnect. And so, I'm at this conference, and it was a women's business and faith conference. And it was supposed to be, I am surrounded by all of these women that are making millions of dollars a year and really doing it. And they're like thriving. And so that's supposed to be encouraging, right? Like, I'm surrounded by all these women, and I'm like, and it should be like lifting me up. And I have never felt so worthless in my whole life. And Aaron happened to be there with me, and we were having breakfast, and I was doing one of those ugly cries, like I can't breathe cries. Like, it was awful. Yes. And these women were like walking by, the ones that have it all together. And I'm like, don't mind me. Like, no. I can't breathe. I've got mascara running down my face. Like, and I am sitting there and I'm talking to Aaron. I'm like, I have never felt so worthless in my entire life. I don't know what I'm doing here. And I was just having a moment, and poor Aaron didn't really know what to say. Like, he was just sitting there like, just
sweet Aaron.
Sweet Aaron. Like, he didn't want to say the wrong thing, but like, what do I do about this?
There was a wrong thing. And so he knew.
He just kept his mouth shut.
Good job, just Aaron.
Watched me, and as I hyperventilated in the chair. And so I had made up my mind. I was like, I am never coming. I don't know. Because I felt like the Lord had led me to come to that conference. Yeah. And I didn't know why I was there. And I was sitting there. I was like, I'm literally never coming back here again, God. I don't know why you brought me here. Like, I was actually kind of annoyed. And so I went to the sessions that day, and I was just sitting there kind of counting down the moments until I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be done. Like, I'm ready to go home. And so Jamie Kern-Lima look her up. She's awesome. She has a cool story. She sold her makeup products to L'Oreal for like $1 billion or something. She's just an amazing woman. But she was not scheduled to speak at this conference. And she called up the woman who had the conference and said, hey, I have a message that the Lord will not let me forget. And I have to say something because it's for someone in your audience. And she said, can I please come back and say a couple words at the end of the conference? And the woman was like, totally. Like, you can totally come back. So all of this is unbeknownst to me. I'm just sitting there like waiting till this conference is over so I can go home. And so Jamie Kern-Lima steps up at the very end and she says, I just drove 3 hours to be here. She goes, I'm not wearing a bra. I have makeup on from last night. Like, she was speaking all of my love languages. I was like, yes, I can identify so much with this. And she said, my mom is in ICU. Her mom was struggling with, I think, cancer. She said, my mom was in ICU and I was with her all night. And I left her bedside to come because God would not let me not come. He gave me this message and he gave me this word and it's for someone here. And so she goes, I've never spoken like this, but she said, here's the message. She said, if you are struggling with your worth, if you feel like you're not worth it, you are not questioning yourself. You're not doubting yourself. You're doubting God. Do you believe what God says? Because when you question, am I worth it? Like, you're not believing God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Yeah. He is not, you're not believing like I formed you in your womb. Like there, you know, he has purpose in our lives. And I never thought about it being God doubt. I always thought about it being self-doubt. And in that moment, something clicked with me. And I lost it again. I had been crying that morning and just like completely lost it again. And everything she said was just, and it may have been for a couple other people, but it felt like God took this woman away from her mom's hospital bed to speak exactly to where I needed it. And that night they had spontaneous baptisms in the Pacific Ocean. So I'm from the East Coast and the water's kind of warm. The water's not warm on the other coast. And it was at night. It was dark. We had gone so long that it was like completely pitch black. And I felt like the Lord was calling me, like, I want you to take this, because I've already been baptized, but I felt like he was like, I want you to take this. I want you to be baptized, and I want you to leave this worthlessness in the Pacific Ocean. Do not take it back with you. And so that was such a breakthrough moment for me. And it doesn't mean that I don't have those times where the enemy tries to creep in and like, okay, but who cares about that really? Like, no one's going to care about this, or no one's, even with this podcast, it's like, well, who cares? Like, no one needs to listen to that. No one's going to listen to that. Like, and so it doesn't mean that I don't have to be on guard and I don't have to fight, but there was breakthrough that I experienced, and the Lord is so good in his timing. And it was like, I felt like it was one of those moments where sometimes I'm a visual person, but it felt like there was packed hard soil. And through the therapy and through the things I was getting, that soil was getting looser and looser. And I felt like that night was like a breakthrough where that soil just became unearthed and unpacked. And now I felt like God could plant something there. Yes. Like, your heart is ready for me to plant something new. But I had to get there. If I threw a seed in that rock hard ground, like, it's not going deep. It's not rooting. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. And so,
okay, let's go get baptized. That was good.
Spontaneous baptisms next week, guys.
Oh my gosh.
So I just loved your story, and I love that God, through our stories are different, but it's the same message. Like, you are worth it. Yes. You are enough because I created you. And that's,
can I say one thing you said, and I'll end with this?
Oh my gosh.
Actually, two things. One, I felt my whole life that I was supposed to get baptized as an adult, and your husband baptized me. He was like teaching a class on a night, and as you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, because I had been baptized too. Grew up in the Baptist church, got saved a lot of times. Yeah. Like every
baptized
day.
A lot.
Absolutely. I was like, I am not going to hell. He'll know. I did. I had the insurance every night. Jesus, just in case last night didn't work, I'm back again.
Tonight,
yeah, I was like, I'm back.
Baptized again.
Baptized and Baptist trauma. But we now know I'm protected in God's hands. You said something that I thought, because we talked a little bit about my dad, up till that moment, until I really processed the borderline part, I had avoided pain for a long time. And you can't really avoid pain. Right. But I almost I would collapse or I would run. I would activate into that borderline attributes at times, because I don't ever want to define myself. I'm not borderline.
Right. That's not who you are. That's not your label.
But I definitely have these behaviors that can get activated, hulking me.
Yeah.
And I thought about what you just said, and I thought, man, as soon as I was willing to deal with my story and really allow God to help me really look at how his story has changed mine, it was like talking about broken to build, he rebuilt. Like every time it was something. So like first he had to deal with like, why do you react these ways?
Yeah.
And that was kind of in COVID. Like I was really grateful for COVID because the isolation causes you to isolate into I think a lot of people recognized what was starting to be unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because you were in this like very crazy time of life. And then it was like meeting the brother. And then I went through like 3 miscarriages and, thing after thing. And then I had my son and then my dad died.
Yeah.
And I just think I always will go back and be like, man, what you just said, in God's goodness, he had to get the soil right, because he was trying to plant worthiness and he was trying to plant peace and he was trying to plant love. But you're right, there's so much rockiness of years of avoidance. And that's what I try to tell people is I'm like, it is so hard to start. And I actually forget how hard it can be, because I think once I embrace vulnerability and once I embrace what God can do through a story and through my brokenness, it's like I didn't ever want to go back.
Right.
I was like, don't put me back. I don't want to. I want people to know that I am used. I am chosen. I am his prized possession.
Yep.
And all parts of me he's going to use for his good.
Yep.
And I think that is where as you were talking and bringing back my dad, I'm so grateful my dad didn't die before all of that. Because I don't think I don't know. Honestly, a big reactor to people who are unaware of their borderline is they a lot of times can end up committing suicide.
Okay.
Because things get so dark.
Yeah.
And I had definitely struggled with dark thoughts of like, the world would be better without me.
Yeah.
If this is the only way to escape feeling rejected. So it's like, even that part, I look at the protection of God's hands of healing.
Yeah.
And rebuilding me to go, you can be okay.
Yeah.
And it is sad. I miss my dad. Thanksgiving is like always the time. I don't know why. He was British. It's like a defeat for him. I'm like,
he didn't even like Thanksgiving.
No, I'm like, I don't even understand why it always makes me think of him. I'm like Boxing Day or something. We didn't celebrate that, but
But you should have.
It was probably that we always joke that I was like, we defeated you. Ha ha, like goodbye, King George, Can't say the Queen now that she's gone. But I'm like, man, I am each step of the way. And even parenting, as I was telling you, were asking me about 3 kids, and I was like, it's a lot. But I'm learning like the anger that's inside of me that comes out, I have to deal with.
Yeah.
And I can get through it.
Yeah. So
I appreciate you inviting me to share my story, because it's so healing to once again remind myself that like, the goal is not to not be broken. Yeah. That's not the goal.
Right.
The goal is to allow Christ to pick you back up and rebuild you afterwards, to be clay.
Yep. So true.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. Thanks for like letting me like remember the faithfulness of God and his worthiness that he's called me to.
Yeah. So true. Well, I know that the listeners are going to want to know where to find you, to find information. I mean, I already follow her. It's good, but tell everyone where they can find more information.
You can find me on MySpace. No, I'm just kidding. This question cracks me up because I'm like, you can find me on Instagram. I will post very funny mom content.
It is really funny. I actually asked you about a reel that you posted. I wanted a copy to be able to post it, and she's like, I don't know how to do that. So I had to screen record it and post it myself.
I want to tell you that to sign a document today, I had to like download a whole Google sheet. So it's Ash, ASH, Nicole, NICOLE, Murphy, 88. Could I have picked a longer name? On Instagram. So
Awesome.
follow for some good laughs.
Yes.
And bad parenting. And middle toe flicking off.
And middle toe. And the middle toes.
Yes. That's how we'll nail it.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It was great to have you, and we are so thankful. We will be back next week, so make sure you tune in.